Tiny Glade is one of my most anticipated games in 2024, and although it's only been out for 24 hours and I've only had the chance to play it in the small hours of the morning for a couple of hours, I'm already blown away with what you can do in this game, and it provides so many possibilities for just letting your creativity go wild. And no matter what you build, it looks beautiful from any direction and any angle that you place it. And there's something to be said about the ease and intuitiveness of Tiny Glade that makes it one of the most clever, tactile and interactive builder games that I think I've ever played. Tiny Glade, though, is a tiny diorama builder. There's no end goal, there are no rules, there are no things that you're trying to achieve. It's just you and an open plot of land that you can then terraform and build on to make your own diorama from. There's 5 different areas to choose from, such as like an autumny flower scene. There's a wintry one with snow and lots of snow-capped buildings. There's more summer glade with openness in, lots of fresh grass everywhere. And it does have some aesthetic choices and additional like flavours of what you're going to build as you get into the game itself. Once you're into the plot of land, the 2 main building blocks that you'll be starting with are circular buildings and kind of square oblong buildings. And the beauty of this is that when you place them, you then have lots of sliders and arrows and pullable objects to kind of twist and morph each of these objects into the shape and size that you want. So you can lift the floor off the ground to make things on stilts. You can then make the actual size of the building like a single story or a second story or higher, depending on how you twist the height lever up and down. You can make the building more stretched out and long, or you can make it thick and wide. And then you can twist the roof so that the roof can be like really elongated or very tiny and short. And then you can collapse the roof entirely, and that turns a house into a castle keep, for example. And you can merge all of these things together by then rotating and mashing the different buildings together so that you can create really uniquely designed buildings, and then perhaps place one on top of another so that you have like layers of things as you go up some staircases, for example. And it reminds me a little bit of a game called Townscaper that came out about 2 years ago, I think, where everything kind of felt a little bit ramshackle and weird because it has a randomized element to the design of where, if you're raising things off the ground, where the pillars will go, for example, or if you're building a building that falls off of the side of a cliff, it still needs to stand and hang off the side. There'll always be some randomized elements in there that you're never going to quite get the same treatment every single time, but that's part of the fun of exploring what Tiny Glade has to offer, and it's what makes the game so approachable and easy to play with. That said, when you then do start putting in windows into your properties, what that does do is place randomized elements of objects and furniture around your place so that it feels more lived in and more villagey or castle-y or ruiny, for want of a better phrase. And these will be things like flower pots, barrels, wagon wheels, shovels, ladders, things like that, that just make the world feel like a true diorama that's been lived in. And whilst these are randomised elements and great, one thing that I would like to see in a future iteration of this game is the ability to select those things individually and move them around somewhat, because I'd like to be able to put, flower pots on my paths, for example, so that I could make a little central area for like a little promenade court, maybe, for example. And that's kind of lacking a little bit in the current experience of Tiny Glade, but I could see that being something that could be, I'm air quoting, easy to implement in future releases, perhaps if this game's going to continue to be developed over time. What's here, though, is utterly gorgeous, and this whole tactile, spinny, stretchy, squashy approach to buildings and structures gives so many possibilities that you can spend an absolute ton of time just dealing with that. And that's before you get onto terraforming, because you can raise the ground off of its base so that you can then have mountains. And if you've already carved paths through it, and again, paths, you can alter the size and width of them as you go through the different environments, and also kind of what the path actually is and how it looks. And the same for all of the buildings. You can change like the colours of the tiles and the bricks and whether they've got wood in them or not. But if you're creating mountains, the mountains become steps as you go up to them. So it allows you to kind of create things where there's a giant tower at the top of the hill and it looks very dramatic, because then you can change the sun to nighttime and you can have a moody, misty moon in the background. And you're like, wah, 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 wah. And then it could be that you actually have some water that goes through, so you've got like a little tiny lake, or you can have it so that something's almost on a little isle on its own and water surrounding it. It's entirely up to you, plotting down trees and flowers to make things feel more lived in and bushy and summery and just nice and calm. Depending on what you put down, also generates some additional little tiny animals. You might have lots of grass where sheep will wander around quite happily. Or it could be that you're putting plants into some water, and that means that little butterflies will fly around. And as it comes to night time, fireflies will gently hover around as you wander through your tiny diorama, seeing what photos you want to snap. And this takes me onto photo mode, which is an entire different mode in this game that deserves a lot of love and attention too. The camera mode has a few different settings. So there's one that you can play just like as if you're building, moving things around with the mouse controls. But then there's one where you can hover around like a drone. There's one where you can walk around your environment, which is quite cool. And although you can't go inside anything, it does mean that you can kind of stand at the front door and then gaze off into the distance and take photos like that. And then there's one where you can do it from an aerial map view as well, which I think would be quite handy for, I guess, flavour photos for if you're wanting to do some stuff for your D&D nights, for example. You can then change lots of the filter and options. There's lots of like Instagrammable filters that you can lay on the top, but you can also change again the day and night cycle, how much colour is infiltrated into certain elements of the buildings as you go. And you can even change some of the like shutter frame rates and add on like a hue filter to make things more focused in certain areas with like draw distance and stuff like that. So loads and loads of camera features that allow you to take some quite highly stylized photos of your tiny Glade as well. And so there's a whole secondary area of this game which I was exploring, just like posing, changing from day to night, then going, ha ha ha, the light just shines perfectly through here. And I was doing like stupid artsy shots where I was walking up to windows in my castle walls that were broken and then pointing my camera through it so that I could then take like a moody shot of another house in the distance. And it opened up a level of creativity for me that I wasn't expecting, because quite often when it comes into like camera mode for games, I'm quite slapdash. But with Tiny Glade, because there's so many options and you've got so much camera freedom, I didn't feel like I needed to be slapdash at all, and I was taking my time making really good shots. I have to say, I've only been playing this for a few hours, but I've adored every single minute of it. If you're a fan of Townscaper or Summer House, this game is utterly for you. If you're a fan of building things with no particular objectives, but you want to make things look pretty and cool and feel accomplished, this game is for you. If you just want to noodle around things and make dioramas, but you have no skill in being able to paint anything, this is so me. This game is for you. I've never felt so in control of building something like this outside of the kinds of things that, say, Summer House and Townscaper offered. But they were both far more stylized, minimalist type experiences, whereas this is doing a small style of thing in a very maximalist way, and it just gives me cozy vibes all the way from beginning to end, and real sense of accomplishment. I've built something beautiful and amazing and I want to share with everyone. So huge thumbs up from me. Can't wait to see what this game does post launch, and hopefully it goes from strength to strength, adding more features over time, because fundamentally the tools here are some of the best I've seen in gaming. And they deserve to be applauded and appreciated by lots and lots of gamers around the world. Written review will be over on higherplanegames.com. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.